Thank you, Chairman Rubio, Ranking Member Boxer, and other members of the committee for convening this important hearing on the plight of millions of girls around the world who are subjected to early and forced marriage. And I just want to say, Senator Rubio, Senator Boxer, Senator Gardner, and also for Senator Durbin, we are very well aware how busy and compressed the Senate schedule is, and it is so heartening for all of us that you are carving out time to talk about this issue just right now. It really just speaks volumes about how much you care, and it really is a morale boost for us, so thank you very much. Ambassador Russell has outlined the scope of the problem. I want to focus my remarks on early and forced marriage among people who are refugees, internally displaced, or stateless. As you know, my Bureau aids refugees and others uprooted by conflicts and crises. Thanks to the U.S. Congress, we are funded to provide assistance around the world in hotspots and crisis zones to bring relief to people who suffer. And as part of this, we see time and time again how these emergencies exacerbate the threat of early and forced marriage. Not only in the war zones, but unfortunately also in the places where families seek safety and take refuge. Boko Haram and ISIL outrage the world by enslaving girls and forcing them into marriage, but these are not the only places where abuses are being perpetrated. Tragedies also unfold every day around the globe as combatants in conflicts use attacks on women and girls to terrorize, subjugate, and scatter innocent civilians. Families forced to flee may splinter. Some lose members through death or separation, including losing adult men who are the traditional heads of households. Families also lose their livelihoods, their dignity, and their legal and social status. Instead of being able to work, they must rely on aid. Many find themselves living in poverty, in the close quarters of slums or tents, feeling adrift, uncertain about their fate, and understandably fearful for their future. Having escaped war, at this point they ought to be able to breathe a sigh of relief and resume normal life. But life in exile is not normal, and regrettably, it is not always safe. So in the chaotic background to these situations, parents may feel that they must do whatever it takes to safeguard their daughters' reputations and their family's honor. And families may be afraid of what will happen to their young unmarried daughters as they flee and find themselves in these new unfamiliar environments. So early and forced marriage becomes a so-called negative coping strategy. Syrian refugees in Jordan point to worries over safety and sexual harassment as reasons for arranging marriages for their young daughters. Some parents also hope marrying a local man will help them stay in the host country legally. Families marry off daughters because they're running out of money. In some cultures, families see their daughters as a burden when it grows heavier, when there are no opportunities for further education or work, and that is especially true when the family is struggling to put food on the table. And some families see early and forced marriage as preferable to other alternatives open to girls with no other source of income. For all these reasons, more girls are forced into marriage. After 2 years in exile in Jordan, the rate of child marriages among Syrian girls there was twice the pre-war Syrian average. Before the war, about 13% of Syrian girls under 18 were married. But by 2013, the share of married girls among refugee families jumped to 1 in 4. And nearly half of those girls married men at least a decade older than they are. Even though parents may think they are shielding their daughters from abuse and sexual assault, early and forced marriage can have the opposite effect. Girls married young, especially those married to much older men, are more likely to suffer physical and emotional abuse and sexual violence than unmarried girls. I'm conscious of the time, so I trust you will put my written remarks into the record. And what it goes on to talk about is that it's physically dangerous for girls to become young mothers. And it's dangerous for their own bodies, and it's not good for the health of their babies. And then this, in a way, is taking the scourge of child marriage and passing it on to another generation. And there's a similar sort of passage to the next generation that happens in terms of legal documentation, statelessness. If a girl is too young to be married, if legally she shouldn't be married, if she's living in an uncertain situation, her baby may not get registered. It may not have a birth certificate. And this can provide problems then for the rest of their lives. And then our testimony goes on to talk about the remedies, how we need to strengthen laws against early and forced marriage, how we have to make it easier to document marriages and births, how the United States is co-sponsoring did co-sponsor at the UN Human Rights Council a resolution on the right to a nationality, and particularly a women's equal nationality rights, which is so important in terms of helping women around the world. We are also supporting UNHCR's global campaign to end statelessness within the next decade. Kathy's already mentioned the U.S. global strategy to empower adolescent girls, and certainly we're really putting a big focus all year this year on trying to get more girls educated, more kids in school generally, more refugee children in school, and especially refugee girls. I would love to also draw your attention to the Safe from the Start initiative that was launched around this time of year in 2013. This is the third year now that it has existed, and it's to not just respond to bad things happening to women and girls overseas, but to prevent them from happening in the first place. And this is where U.S. leadership has the potential to really make a big difference. And then I have a couple of examples in here from overseas. Next week at the UN General Assembly, we'll be doing a number of things that are very related to this. One is the call to action on protection from gender-based violence in emergencies. There's an annual meeting that will be held. It'll be chaired by Sweden this year, but in the past it's been chaired by the U.S., and we are very much a partner with the Swedes in doing this. And also the President's has organized and will be holding a leaders summit on refugees. A piece of that is to encourage countries that host refugees to allow more children to go to school and to allow more countries to permit refugees to work. And both of those are potential solutions to this problem of refugees feeling they have no alternative but to marry off their daughters.